Steel Wings, Phoenix Rising. Chapter 1. The Return. Lieutenant Ava Phoenix Carter stood at the edge of the flight deck, the wind whipping her face as she gazed out at the horizon. The familiar hum of jet engines in the distance brought back memories. Memories of missions long past, of comrades lost, and of the thrill that only comes when you're piloting a machine built to defy gravity. It had been years since she last flew in combat, but the call to return to the skies had become impossible to ignore. She wasn't the same wide-eyed recruit from a decade ago. Now a seasoned veteran with countless successful missions under her belt, she had earned her call sign, Phoenix, not just for her ability to rise from the ashes, but for her unmatched flying skills that had made her a legend. Yet, the mission before her now would be unlike anything she'd faced before. An elite squadron, formed in secret, was calling for her return. The world was changing, and the skies were no longer safe. A new enemy, technologically advanced and brutally efficient, had taken control of strategic airspace, crippling defense systems across the globe. The squadron's mission: reclaim control and take back the skies. Ava had hesitated when the offer came. She had thought her days of combat were behind her. But something inside her stirred. The fire, the need for adrenaline, the pull of duty. She couldn't turn away. The world needed her, and once again, the skies would be her battlefield. As she watched the jets soar, her thoughts turned to her former mentor, Captain Jake Ironclad Maxwell. He had been her guide, her ally, and the one person who believed in her when no one else did. But he had vanished without a trace 2 years ago, during what was supposed to be a routine mission. No one had heard from him since. Rumors swirled that he had gone rogue, while others whispered that he had sacrificed himself for a greater cause. Ava didn't know what to believe, but the one thing she did know was that she owed him everything. Now, with her new orders in hand, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. The squadron needed a leader, someone who could bring them together, someone who could lead them into the most dangerous skies they'd ever faced. And Ava, with her unwavering determination and steel will, knew she was that person. But as she suited up and prepared to step back into the cockpit, an uneasy feeling gnawed at the back of her mind. There was something different about this mission. The briefing had been vague, the objectives unclear, and the enemy seemed almost too prepared. Something didn't add up. As she climbed into her jet, the Phoenix insignia gleaming under the setting sun, she couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything, not just for her, but for the world. The engines roared to life, and with a final glance at the horizon, Ava took to the skies once more, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Little did she know, the real battle had only just begun. Are you ready to see what's next for Phoenix? Don't miss the thrilling turn of events. Subscribe and share to keep up with the mission. Chapter 2. The New Enemy. High above the clouds, the sky stretched endlessly in every direction, a vast ocean of blue and white. The roar of jet engines was the only sound that accompanied Lieutenant Ava Phoenix Carter as she led her squadron through the early stages of their mission. Her eyes were locked on the horizon, scanning for the slightest hint of movement, the first sign of the enemy. They had received intelligence that the enemy had upgraded their aircraft, sleek, silent machines with advanced stealth technology, making them nearly impossible to detect. Ava's squadron was flying a reconnaissance mission, gathering intel on the enemy's air capabilities. But as they soared deeper into hostile airspace, something felt off. There was no sign of the enemy. No chatter on the radios. The sky was eerily quiet. Phoenix, this is Raven. You picking up anything? The voice of Lieutenant Alex Raven Quinn crackled over the comms, breaking the silence. Negative, Ava replied, her voice calm but tense. It's too quiet out here. Stay sharp. Her instincts were screaming at her that something was wrong. Years of combat experience had taught her to trust those instincts, and right now, they were telling her that they were flying straight into a trap. Suddenly, the radar lit up. Blips appeared on the screen, moving fast. Too fast. Contact. Enemy jets, closing in fast. Raven's voice came through again, this time with a sharp edge of urgency. Ava's heart raced. All units, break formation. Evasive maneuvers now. Her squadron scattered just as the first enemy missiles streaked through the sky, narrowly missing their jets. Ava gritted her teeth and pulled her jet into a tight turn, her body pressed against the seat as the G-forces pulled at her. The enemy was here, and they were ready for a fight. But something about the enemy jets didn't add up. They were faster, more agile than anything she'd seen before. It was as if they were anticipating every move her squadron made. "Phoenix, these aren't just any jets," Raven called out, his voice strained as he dodged another missile. "They're piloted by AI. We're up against drones." Ava's blood ran cold. Drones? Fully autonomous jets? That explained the speed and precision. But it also meant they were fighting an enemy that didn't tire, didn't fear, and couldn't be reasoned with. She had to think fast. The mission had just gotten a lot more complicated. What will Phoenix do next? Stay tuned for the pulse-pounding action. Subscribe and share to see how this battle unfolds. Chapter 3. The Trap Tightens. Ava yanked her controls to the left, narrowly dodging an incoming missile as it streaked past her jet. The enemy drones were relentless, their precision unnerving, as if they could predict her every move. Her breathing was ragged, the adrenaline surging through her veins, but her mind remained focused. She had faced impossible odds before, but never like this, never against an enemy that was cold, calculating, and unrelenting. "Raven, we need to regroup. Fall back to Point Bravo." Ava barked into the comms, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "Roger that." Raven's voice crackled through, accompanied by the sharp sound of missile fire. "On my way, but these things aren't giving us any room to breathe." Ava's mind raced as she tried to devise a plan. The drones were faster and more agile than her squadron's jets, but they lacked the one thing that could give her team an edge: human instinct. They could predict patterns, but they couldn't adapt to the unexpected. "Everyone, listen up." Ava shouted over the comms, her voice cutting through the static. "We're going to have to outthink them. These drones are running on algorithms, they can predict movements, but they can't handle chaos. On my mark, we're going to scatter in all directions. Don't follow any set patterns. Break every rule you've learned about dogfighting. We need to confuse their systems." She could hear the hesitation in the silence that followed. It was a risky maneuver, one that went against every tactical training they'd ever had. But this was no ordinary enemy. "Copy that, Phoenix," Raven replied, his voice carrying a hint of doubt but also trust. "You lead, we follow." Ava took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the controls tightly. "On my count. 3, 2, 1. Now!" The squadron broke formation, each jet darting in a different direction, twisting and turning in unpredictable spirals. Ava threw her jet into a steep dive, her body pressing hard against the seat as the G-forces pulled at her. The drones hesitated for a split second, their algorithms struggling to compute the sudden erratic behavior of the pilots. It worked. The drones, unable to process the chaotic maneuvers, faltered. Ava seized the opportunity. "Raven, hit them now. They're confused." Raven and the others opened fire, missiles streaking toward the enemy drones. Several of them exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their metallic bodies disintegrating in midair. But the victory was short-lived. As the dust cleared, more drones appeared on the radar, double the number they had just faced. "Phoenix, we've got more inbound." Raven's voice was tight with urgency. "We can't hold them off for long." Ava's heart sank. This was no ordinary skirmish. They were being led into something much bigger, a full-scale assault. And she knew they weren't prepared for it. But retreat wasn't an option. "Not now. We're not giving up," Ava growled, determination hardening her voice. We push through. We adapt. These things may be smart, but they don't know who they're dealing with. As the drones closed in once more, Ava took one last glance at the radar. Her mind raced, searching for any advantage they could exploit. And then she saw it, a narrow canyon below, barely visible through the clouds. It was a long shot, but it might be their only chance. "Follow me," she shouted into the comms. "We're going down into the canyon. They can't follow us through there." Without waiting for a response, Ava dived, her jet cutting through the clouds like a knife. The walls of the canyon rose up around her, towering and jagged. It was a dangerous maneuver, but if they could navigate the narrow passage, the drones would be forced to break off their pursuit. One by one, her squadron followed, their jets skimming just above the rocky terrain. The enemy drones hesitated at the canyon's edge, unable to maintain pursuit in such tight quarters. For now, they were safe. But Ava knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The real battle was just beginning. Can Phoenix outsmart the enemy? Don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe and share to see where this mission takes her next. Chapter 4. Ghosts from the Past. The rocky walls of the canyon loomed high above as Ava's squadron weaved through the narrow passage, the silence eerie after the chaos of the battle. For the moment, the drones had lost them, but Ava knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. The enemy would regroup, and when they did, they would come back even stronger. Her mind raced, searching for options. They couldn't outrun the drones indefinitely, and they couldn't outfight them in the open skies. She needed a plan, and fast. "Phoenix, what's the play?" Raven's voice came through the comms, filled with concern. "We can't keep running forever." Ava's jaw tightened as she scanned the radar. There was something about this mission that didn't add up, something more than just the drones. Why had they been sent into this region, where the enemy was clearly more prepared than they had been led to believe? And what was their real objective? As her thoughts churned, a new signal appeared on the radar, faint, almost imperceptible. It was coming from deeper within the canyon, a location that hadn't been on any of their maps. "What the hell is that?" Raven muttered, seeing the same signal. "I don't know," Ava replied, her voice low. "But we're going to find out." She guided her jet deeper into the canyon, her eyes fixed on the source of the signal. The walls around them narrowed, and the sky above was nothing but a thin strip of blue. As they flew further, the signal grew stronger. Then, without warning, the canyon opened up into a wide, hidden valley, and there, in the center, was something that made Ava's blood run cold. It was a massive, abandoned airbase, one she recognized instantly. This was no ordinary outpost. It was a black site, a classified facility that had been decommissioned years ago. Or so they had been told. Her comms crackled, and a voice she hadn't heard in years filled the cockpit. "Phoenix. I knew you'd find me." It was Ironclad. What does Ironclad's return mean for Phoenix? The mystery deepens. Subscribe and share to uncover the truth. Chapter 5. The Lost Command. Ava's breath caught in her throat. The voice on the comms was unmistakable, despite the years and the static that crackled through the transmission. Captain Jake Ironclad Maxwell, the man who had mentored her, trained her, and vanished without a trace 2 years ago, was alive. And somehow, he had known she would come. "Phoenix, do you copy?" Raven's voice pierced through her thoughts, but Ava couldn't respond immediately. Her mind was spinning, trying to make sense of it all. Ironclad, here? At a black site base that was supposed to be shut down? None of it made sense. "I copy," she finally managed, her voice tight. "Ironclad, how are you alive? Where are you?" Her heart pounded in her chest as she waited for an answer, torn between hope and suspicion. The pause on the other end stretched long enough for doubt to creep in. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe this was some kind of enemy trick. But then, the voice returned, weary yet steady. with that unmistakable tone of authority she remembered so well. "It's a long story, Phoenix. One I can't explain over an open channel. You need to land at the base below. I'll meet you inside, but you need to hurry. You're not alone in those skies." Ava's eyes flicked back to the radar, which still showed no enemy contacts. But her instincts, sharpened by years of combat, told her otherwise. They were being watched, stalked like prey. "Phoenix, this could be a trap," Raven warned. "Ironclad disappeared for a reason. We have no idea what's down there." "I know," she replied, her voice tense but resolute. "But we don't have any other options right now. If he's alive, if he's really here, we need answers." Her fingers tightened on the throttle as she guided her jet toward the long-abandoned runway below. Raven and the rest of the squadron followed suit, each of them clearly uneasy about what they were walking, or rather, flying, into. As Ava's jet touched down on the cracked and weathered asphalt of the forgotten base, dust billowed up around the landing gear. The whole place had an eerie, ghost town feel, as though it had been frozen in time. Old fighter jets, long since decommissioned, sat rusting on the edges of the tarmac. Buildings stood in disrepair, their windows shattered and walls crumbling. Yet something about the base still buzzed with energy, as if it was waiting to be awakened. "Stay alert," Ava said as she powered down her jet and climbed out of the cockpit. Her feet hit the ground, and the weight of the situation settled on her shoulders. Whatever lay ahead, it was bigger than any one mission. This was personal now. Her squadron formed a tight perimeter as they made their way toward the main hangar. The wind whistled through the empty buildings, and for a moment, everything seemed too quiet, too still. And then, from the shadows of the hangar, a figure emerged. Ironclad. He looked older, more worn than the last time she had seen him, but his eyes still held that same sharp, calculating focus. Ava felt a mix of emotions, relief, confusion, and anger all swirling inside her. This man had been like a father to her in many ways, and yet, he had disappeared without a word, leaving her and the rest of the squadron to wonder if he had betrayed them or if he had been lost forever. "Phoenix," Ironclad said, stopping a few feet away. His voice was calm, steady, as if no time had passed between them. "You've done well to survive this long." Ava's hands balled into fists at her sides, emotions finally bubbling to the surface. "Why, Ironclad? Why did you disappear? What the hell happened to you?" Ironclad's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes darkened. "I didn't disappear by choice. I was taken by the same people who are controlling those drones. There's more at stake here than you realize." Ava took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. "Then explain it to me. Because right now, it feels like we're all just pawns in some game we don't understand." He nodded slowly, his gaze shifting to the sky for a moment before returning to her. "The enemy you've been fighting isn't just some rogue faction. They're part of a global network, an organization that's been developing advanced AI to control the skies. They've infiltrated our systems, taken control of key defense installations, and now they're pushing for total dominance. I was sent to investigate them, but when I got too close, they took me off the grid." He gestured to the base around them. "This place, this was once one of their command centers. I've been gathering intel from here, waiting for the right moment to strike back. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone I could trust." Ava felt a chill run down her spine. "And you think that's me?" Ironclad stepped closer, his gaze intense. "It has to be you. They know who you are, Phoenix. They know what you're capable of. You're their primary target now." Ava's mind raced. This was bigger than any mission she had ever faced. If what Ironclad was saying was true, then the drones were just the beginning. The enemy wasn't just trying to win a battle, they were trying to take control of the future of warfare. And she was right in the middle of it. "We need to move," Ironclad said, his voice urgent. "They know you're here, and they won't stop until you're either dead or under their control." Ava nodded, her resolve hardening. Then let's finish this. Together. What will Phoenix and Ironclad uncover next? The stakes are higher than ever. Subscribe and share to see how this high-flying mission ends. Chapter 6. The Final Countdown. The interior of the abandoned base felt like a relic of the past, yet as Ava and Ironclad moved deeper into the facility, signs of recent activity began to emerge. Computers hummed to life in dark corners, cables snaked across the floors, and dim lights flickered on the walls. This place hadn't been forgotten, it had been repurposed, quietly and deliberately, by forces working in the shadows. Ava's squadron followed in tense silence, their eyes scanning the area, weapons drawn. Raven, always the skeptic, kept close to Ava's side, his brow furrowed with suspicion. "You really trust him?" he whispered, his voice low enough so only she could hear. "I don't know if I trust anyone right now," Ava muttered back. "But we're running out of options." Ironclad led them to what appeared to be a control room. The large monitors on the wall flickered to life, revealing maps, schematics, and, most concerning, images of enemy drones patrolling major cities around the globe. The scale of the operation was far beyond anything Ava had imagined. "They're planning a coordinated strike," Ironclad explained as he moved toward one of the terminals. "The drones aren't just patrolling, they're setting up for an attack. Once they have control of the skies, they'll cripple global infrastructure, making sure no military force can respond in time." Raven stepped forward, his face pale. "You're talking about total domination. They'd cripple everything, airports, defense systems, communications." "Exactly," Ironclad replied, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "But there's a way to stop them. This base was one of their command centers. If we can hack into their network from here, we can disrupt their systems long enough to launch a counterattack." Ava's eyes narrowed. "What's the catch?" Ironclad looked up, his expression grim. "The catch is, once we start the hack, they'll know we're here. They'll send everything they've got to stop us." Ava glanced at her squadron, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This was it. The final stand. If they failed here, it wouldn't just be their lives on the line, it would be the future of the entire world. "We've faced worse odds," she said, trying to inject some confidence into her voice. "Let's get this done." Ironclad nodded and initiated the hack. The screens flickered, and alarms began to blare throughout the base. The enemy was coming. "Phoenix, incoming!" Raven shouted as the radar lit up with hostile signals. "We've got drones on approach, lots of them." Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she sprinted back toward her jet. "Everyone, get to your fighters. Hold them off as long as you can. We need to buy Ironclad time to finish the hack." The roar of engines filled the air as the squadron took to the skies once more. Ava's hands gripped the controls, her mind racing. This wasn't just another mission. This was life or death, for all of them. As she climbed higher into the sky, the first wave of drones appeared on the horizon, black silhouettes against the setting sun. They were faster, deadlier, and more coordinated than before. But Ava was ready. "Let's show them what humans can do," she muttered under her breath, her finger hovering over the missile trigger. The final battle had begun. The endgame is here. Will Phoenix prevail? Subscribe and share to witness the climactic showdown that could change everything. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting the sky in deep orange hues as the swarm of drones closed in. Ava Phoenix Carter's heart raced as her jet rocketed through the air, the enemy filling the skies like a dark cloud. Each drone moved with unnerving precision, faster and more efficient than any human pilot could hope to be. But Ava knew one thing: they weren't human. And that was their weakness. "Phoenix, I've got two on my tail." Raven's voice crackled through the comms, the tension thick in his words. "I'm on it," Ava responded, her voice tight as she swung her jet around in a sharp arc. Her missiles locked onto the two pursuing drones, and with a quick press of the trigger, She fired. The missiles streaked through the air and hit their marks, both drones exploding into fiery debris. "You're clear, Raven." "Thanks, Phoenix," Raven replied, breathing heavily. "But there's more coming. I don't know how much longer we can hold them." Ava's eyes flicked to the radar. He was right. The sheer number of enemy drones was overwhelming, and they were closing in from all sides. Ironclad's voice came through the comms, cutting through the chaos. "Phoenix, we're almost there. Just a few more minutes, and the hack will be complete. You've got to hold them off." "Copy that," Ava replied, though her stomach twisted at the thought. A few more minutes might as well have been an eternity with the way the battle was unfolding. Her mind raced, searching for a solution. They couldn't outgun the drones, not with their numbers and speed. They needed to outthink them, cause chaos, disrupt their pattern recognition. "Squadron, listen up." Ava barked into the comms. "Scatter. Break formation and fly unpredictably. These drones are running algorithms. If we disrupt their patterns, we might buy Ironclad the time he needs." "Got it." Raven called back, and one by one, the jets of her squadron split off, each pilot flying in a seemingly erratic fashion. Barrel rolls, sudden drops, steep climbs, anything to confuse the drones. The tactic worked, for now. The drones faltered, their precision momentarily disrupted as they struggled to adapt to the chaotic movements of the squadron. But it wouldn't last long. As Ava dodged another missile, her eyes caught something on the horizon, a darker shape, larger than the drones. It was moving fast, coming straight for them. "Phoenix, we've got something big incoming," Raven warned, his voice tight with fear. Ava squinted, her heart skipping a beat. That's not just a drone. That's a command unit. The enemy had sent in its ace, an enormous, heavily armored aerial command drone, designed to oversee and control the swarm. It was bristling with weapons, and its size alone was enough to dwarf their jets. "Phoenix, that thing will tear us apart," Raven shouted. Ava swallowed hard, knowing he was right. The command drone was unlike anything they'd faced so far. But she also knew that if they didn't take it down, the hack would fail, and they would lose the war before it even began. "This is it," she muttered to herself. "This is the game changer." "Raven, Squadron," she called into the comms, her voice steady despite the odds. "I'm going after it. Keep the drones off me as long as you can." "You're crazy, Phoenix," Raven replied, his voice panicked. "That thing's a fortress." "Exactly," she shot back. "And fortresses have weaknesses." Without waiting for a response, Ava pushed her throttle to maximum, her jet screaming through the sky as she headed straight for the command drone. Its cannons roared to life, firing a hail of bullets and missiles at her. She dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding the deadly firepower, her mind focused on a single thought: find the weak point. As she drew closer, she noticed something, a small section near the rear, where the armor plates overlapped unevenly. It was a tiny flaw, but it was enough. If she could get a missile into that gap, she could bring the whole thing down. Come on," she muttered, lining up the shot. But just as she locked onto the weak point, a swarm of drones broke off from the main group and moved to intercept her. "Damn it!" Ava cursed, her frustration boiling over. There were too many of them. They were going to stop her before she could fire. "Phoenix, hang on." Raven's voice cut through the comms, and out of nowhere, his jet barreled into the swarm of drones, his weapons blazing. "Take the shot." Ava didn't hesitate. She locked onto the command drone's weak point and fired her missile. The projectile streaked through the air and hit the target dead on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire command drone exploded in a blinding flash, sending shockwaves through the sky. The swarm of drones faltered, their controls severed, and began to plummet from the sky like dead birds. "We did it," Ava breathed, disbelief mingling with relief as the skies cleared. Back on the ground, Ironclad's voice came through the comms, triumphant. Hacks complete. The drones are down. You did it, Phoenix. Ava let out a long breath, the adrenaline still coursing through her. The battle was over. They had won. But even as she relished the victory, she knew the war wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I couldn't have done it without all of you, Ava replied, her voice steady. But this isn't the end. We've still got work to do. Raven chuckled over the comms, his voice lighter than it had been all day. Yeah, but let's enjoy this one for a minute, huh? Ava allowed herself a small smile as she guided her jet back toward the base, the remnants of the battle disappearing behind her. They had survived. They had won. For now. The end. If you enjoyed our story, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications.